I feel like nobody asks me about the helicopter shot, but that was f***ing insane. You look at like behind the scenes back in the days, they literally would have guys strapped in and hanging off the sides of helicopters. It's essentially what we did. I mean, I have a photo of the guy and he's just like got his legs sitting out on the rails. He's handheld, he's strapped in, and it's just like, you could just see the fear in his eyes, you know? It's one of those like fairy tale moments in the film, but it's like a little off, you know? It's a gritty handheld shot out of a helicopter. But to me, that's the movie. You know what I mean? That's exactly the movie. So I don't know, I'm really proud of that. My name's Drew Daniels. I'm a cinematographer, and I'm based out of Santa Fe, New Mexico, actually. I like to work with good directors, and I like to work on challenging projects. Like projects that scare me are usually sort of my criteria. I shot Anora, directed by Sean Baker. It's a film about a sex worker from Brooklyn who marries the son of a Russian oligarch, and when his parents find out, everything sort of unravels and goes down a crazy, adventurous spiral.
You go fuck yourself!
Me go fuck myself, me fuck myself, you go fuck yourself and your fucking mother, motherfucker!
I don't think there was really a question that I would do it. I think it was just whether or not I wanted to work with Sean again. And for me, that was like, of course, a no-brainer. The fact that he wanted to have me back after Red Rocket was very, it was an honor, and it's what you want. Especially if you have like a good thing going with the director. You want to have, as a cinematographer, return clients, for lack of a better word, because I don't really think of Sean as like client, he's a collaborator, but as a cinematographer, like I love those relationships, those iconic duos, you know what I mean? Like Gordon Willis and Francis Ford Coppola, or Michael Chapman and Scorsese, and Emmanuel Lubezki and Alfonso Cuarón, and like they kind of go like synonymous. And I think some of the people make their best work when they like keep working together, and they live separate lives. They grow as filmmakers, and they come back every few years and make another thing. And I don't know, I think there's something really beautiful about that. And I think with Sean, our second film together, we win the Palme d'Or. So I feel like it was a pretty good matching, and we just see things so similarly. We work well together. We balance each other out in a nice way. We kind of push each other. The first one was just, I was thrown into the mix, like in a crazy way. It was during COVID. It was a very small film. This was almost like the reward for going through that crazy, often hellish experience of shooting Red Rocket. It was hard. Red Rocket was very hard. But guess what? So was Anora. It was equally as challenging, but just in different ways. We had more money, but we also had more ambition. We had bigger dreams for what this movie could be, and we knew it could be really good. And I think it wasn't until like we really started shooting and just seeing like these performances that we really knew that we had something special. We really held each other to like the highest standard, and we all had really high expectations for the film and for each other. And in a lot of ways though, I feel like there was less talking, less prep that went into this one, just because like we've already had like a shorthand, already knew what Sean likes, already knew the vibe that we were going for. So we don't do like a traditional prep, we don't sit in an office for weeks. It's like neither of us want to do that. We'd rather be just out on the streets. We'd rather be just watching movies or scouting. We do a lot of scouting. Yeah, I think it's very non-traditional, but the movie's also non-traditional. Like we just always try to find ways to keep it sort of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like kind of anti-Hollywood, anti-traditional, even though like sometimes we are very traditional and very classic and very formal in the approach. But we try to do, even when we try to do that, we try to like have an edge to it and like flip it on its head a little bit, To be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of pre-production. Oftentimes I do really well just thrown into something, It's the same philosophy that I have for shooting like handheld. I don't like to know where the actors are gonna go. I like to just play jazz with the actors, and first take, no rehearsal, just me, the camera, and the actor. And I'm just riffing, and whatever my first instinct is with the camera, it's like almost like a documentary sort of instinct that takes over, and just like it's very natural. and you're just reacting in real time to what's happening. And I kind of like that with films too, like as a general approach. I mean, I still prep, and it depends on the project. If it's a big project, I don't want people to think that I don't know how to prep or that I don't do it. But like with Sean, it's not really like that. It just doesn't really work. Or someone was joking, it was like, oh, with Sean's films, I think you should like shoot a couple days and then prep a couple days and then shoot a couple days and then prep a couple days. Cause like everything's changing. So it's almost like counterintuitive to like front load like weeks and weeks and weeks of prep, because you're only going to be disappointed when none of the shit that you prepped actually happens. You know what I mean? Because it changes. Like it's just, you have to just be down for the change, you know, down for the chaos. And even if things aren't chaotic, I feel like we always kind of add it in there because it just makes it more alive. Like Alex Coco, our producer, like we're joking around like, oh, this is just going too well. Like we should change something. Like we should throw a wrench in there. And I feel like there are wrenches thrown in there every single day. I mean, my prep was a lot of scouting and a lot of spending time in Brighton Beach and going to the locations and going to the restaurants and going to the pool hall where we shot and watching movies. You know, there was a couple of like movies that were, I think, inspirational, and some photography here and there, but not super literal with a lot of that stuff. It's more just like a feeling that you get maybe from this part of this movie or the palette of this photograph or this or that, you know. There was one thing that I do with all my films that I try to like figure out, is this an objective film or is this a subjective film? Are we going to be telling this film through her point of view entirely? Or are we going to do a mixture? Or are we going to be more objective and just sort of like observe the character? And I feel like Sean's films tend to be more observational, and a lot of the films that I do tend to be quite subjective. So there was a balance, I think, with this one, because the movie's called Anora. I feel like on one hand you do want to be in her head, but at the same time the movie has such restraint in that regard, and I almost feel like you're not quite with her in her head in her that space until the very end of the film. You know, like she has this guard, and I think that was a really interesting thing that I think probably Sean led that sort of approach, you know. And I try to adapt to Sean's storytelling style, which is a little bit more objective, and it's funny, and we like to play in master shots, we like unconventional coverage. The film, in my opinion, even if it wasn't subjective, it needed to feel like the style and the feeling and the personality of the film, I think, needed to sort of reflect her as a character. So the film has this attitude, like the camera work has attitude, has like punchiness, has like grit to it, has scrappiness to it, like we dollied like right on the floor. We didn't hardly lay any dolly track, like kind of embraced like some imperfections, embraced like underexposure and pushing the film a couple stops and flashing and pulling it a couple stops. We were just all over the map with like some of the visual approach, which just felt like it all in a way echoed her and her sort of scrappy hustler mentality that she has, It almost starts in this like neo-realist sort of way and then goes into like almost like a gangster sort of film. It almost feels like Godfather-esque or something, where we're like really formal, really locked down, classic like dolly moves, and there's an elegance to it, and I don't know, like the home invasion scene, it just has this weight to it. And then it goes into this like crazy wild like New York streets, kinetic, wild section of the film, and then it all comes to a halt and slows down at the end. And for me, I love films that change. I don't want it to just be like one note. I want it to evolve, and I like films that have have an arc to them visually. I don't like films that just feel like one thing. Like I want them to feel like almost like it could be two films or three films like that. It should change, like Waves is a good example of that. For me, it's just more exciting. It's also more fun to shoot a film like that. I feel like when you're doing one thing the whole time, you can get bored. And I feel like, you're in a space, for instance, you're block shooting like 3 or 4 scenes in a space, but there's a progression to what you're doing. It keeps it fresh. It keeps it kind of fun to shoot, Sean and I are both at the point, like, if we can shoot film, we're going to shoot film. And I think we are fortunate to have producers like Alex Coco, who puts that in the budget from the very beginning. It's not like, oh, I don't think we can afford it. Sorry, it's just not fitting in. It's like, no, it's there it's the first thing that goes into the budget, you know, and then everything it stems out from that. You know, we're filmmakers. We make films. We shoot it on film. It's just like the process is more fun. The process, it adds a weight to everything. And I like looking through the viewfinder and just seeing the through the lens and the mirror and the shutter and like hearing the mag right next to your head and like it just feels, you feel this connected to this camera, and it almost feels like this extension of yourself, you know. It's like there's just something too robotic about shooting on digital. Like I don't love that you just get to see the image almost like the final version of what it is, the final product on a monitor, because then everybody is just like picking it apart and everybody knows what it is. But like when you shoot on film, there's a lot of trust in the cinematographer. There's a lot of trust in what the frame is. Everybody knows what the frame is, and then you get these surprises that it's like every day is like Christmas when you get your dailies, and it's exciting. And you show it to the crew, and they're just like over the moon, and like, man, that it just looks amazing. And I think there's something really special about it. We use the ARRICAM LT, which I love. It's my favorite camera. The LT is just so simple, so easy to load, fast. For me, like, fast is kind of everything. Like, I like to work really fast, and I hate when we're waiting on me. I hate when you're just putting too much priority on like the lighting or the camera or like the lighting. I think that there's also like you have to be flexible and amenable to like the actors and the director. And I don't know if I could give you more shots or more takes or more time to just really think about it, and then less time to set it up. Like that's a plus for me. That's always kind of my goal. Because we had discussions, because 4x 35 is like way more expensive than shooting like 2x. I think at one point we talked about 2x. Like, oh, is this a 2x movie? And for me, I was like, no, it just isn't. The opulence of it, the wealth, the oligarchy. To me, that just felt like it had to be on Anamorphic to like really capture that life, that lifestyle, and for her to be enamored and seduced by that lifestyle of like that, what Ivan represents. And it also like adds a little magic, which I think Sean's films tend to have, that little bit of magic to them, like he shoots these almost like neo-realist kind of films, but then heightens them, and makes them beautiful. Like Red Rocket, we shot Anamorphic 16, and it's like a similar thing. You could have shot that grainy 16 millimeter, all handheld with like drab colors, and it would just be like, it'd be depressing, but we shot the same thing with bright saturated colors and anamorphic lenses, and it just adds an element of it heightens it. It gives it a little surreal, not even surrealness, but like it just makes it for me it's more cinematic and more, I don't know, like I think it's pretty obvious when you read a script if it's an anamorphic movie or if it's a spherical movie. And I think the sort of magical world of like the oligarchy and the world, the experience of being with Annie, and like the experience, like for example in the movie when she's giving him the private dance at his house, and it's almost shot like a music video, and you have these crazy lens flares taking over. I mean, like, just imagine if that was spherical. It wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't like land the same way, I also just personally love like the distortion of anamorphic lenses, so I tend to shoot on the wide lenses as much as I can. Our workhorse lens, I would say, was the 35 millimeter Lomo. That lens, I mean, it's Russian. The film's about Russians. It's like we shot the film with those lenses so that it would have this sort of Russian DNA just built into the look of the film. The 35 and the 75 Lomo, I feel like we probably use those for 75% of the film. And then I had a handful of Atlas Orion lenses that I used. I had a 25 mil that I used for, extreme wides. I think we used it for the really wide shot of the courthouse. I used it for the Steadicam shots through the hallways with like everybody. At the end when they're going to get Yvonne and he's getting a private dance, that was all like on that 25 mil. I remember we were doing scouts for Anora, and we have our Artemis and stuff, and Sean always had like it set to 25 millimeter. He just sees the world in like wide lenses, and I get it. 25 mil though is very wide, right? So you might think, oh, this is a 25, but in reality, we only use the 25 sparingly. The 35 just had this weight to it. I also carried a 32 Atlas and a 50, and I think 100. And I use those lenses mainly in low light scenarios because I could shoot them wide open and they didn't fall apart. Whereas with the Lomos, if I went more open than like a 2.8, they would start to get real soft. And I think I did shoot them. I never shot them wide open, but I shot them close to it, and sometimes it's a bit much. But I usually diffused the lenses as well, the Atlases. I think we used maybe low cons to just take a little bit of the sharpness off of them and lift the shadows a little bit to kind of help them match the Lomos. But here's the thing also, I didn't have a 50 mil Lomo, which I think this is a 50 mil Lomo. I didn't have a 50 mil, and we shot with round fronts, which is what you're shooting with right now. And it's kind of funny because when I shot Red Rocket, I only had a wide and a long lens. I didn't have a middle lens, so I feel like that's almost just become our style just because we can't afford a full set of fucking lenses. But we had the 50 Orion, which I used a bit. I used it in the car, like night scenes in the cars. I mean, those we had to use the Orions. I had to use them for some club scenes. Just when we were really pushing the light. I mean, I needed every bit of light, and I didn't want to like overlight scenes. So I was trying to use as much available and as much. I didn't want to over manipulate the spaces and the lighting. I wanted to feel real for the actors on set too. I didn't want to just blast everybody with a lot of light. We were usually playing everything really low, and especially in the cars, because we did all of the cars like live driving. And you can't do that with like live driving with lights blasting in the actor's face. You have to play it really low, and then the street lights, you push everything up like 2 stops, and then the street lights are now doing a bit of lighting, and the ambient light from the car, from like fluorescents from storefronts, and I mean even like food carts and stuff on the side of the road they would now like actually bleed into the car and light the people in the car a little bit, which was cool. That was our basic lens set. And then we had the Lomo 40 to 120, which we used a handful of times. And that was the lens that actually helped us discover the look of the film. We did a test at Airy in Burbank, and that lens just, it was unbelievable. Like, there's nothing like that lens. The logistics of actually shooting a whole movie with the zoom lens that you have to shoot at a 5.6 all the time is like pretty, it would have been a thing. So we ended up using mostly primes, but that lens was amazing. The opening shot of the movie is shot with that lens, and it's also shot in slow motion. It's also pushed 2 stops, and it's also a night, a club scene lit, with blue neon lights and stuff. And, but it works. In choosing Orions, they kind of served as like a workhorse lens for us. I actually remember listening to an interview with Larkin talking about like, oh yeah, they're like the super speeds of Anamorphics or something. They're fast, they have good close focus, they're flexible, they're small. They're like what super speeds are, and they look good for what they are. Like they're compact, and it was nice to have them kind of in our back pocket. Like, you're shooting a film on Anamorphic 35, all on location, lots of, you had to have that. I usually try to carry a couple of those super speeds or workhorse lenses that I could fall back on. And yeah, with our colorist, I remember at one point I was like talking to him. I was like, should we do like lens distortion maps for our Lomos and then maybe match the Orions to those, but then that just felt like so tedious, and it would have just felt like so over the top to manipulate that much in post. So we just decided to just let it be what it was. And the lenses definitely are a little bit cleaner. They don't flare out as much. They're not quite as milky. So, you know, we did a little bit in post to kind of match them up a little bit more, but I don't know. I'm also like not a super big fan of like over manipulating things in post, and I don't know, for this film it kind of felt that you could even get away with just some inconsistencies, you know. Like I remember watching a print of like Licorice Pizza or something, and print was just so inconsistent. It was all over the map, like one scene to the next, or one reel to the next would be like kind of greenish, one would be kind of magenta, and like just so mismatched. And I was like, you know, it's kind of cool. I kind of like that. We were really inspired by like French Connection and Taking of Pelham 123, and like these films there's imperfection in there, you know, even though they're like these masterful films, like they're scrappy. They're doing whatever they can do to get exposure, to get an image, and they're aiming for high quality, but at the same time, like they'll shoot the lens wide open and have it fall apart just so that you have something to look at, you know? And I think there was something kind of almost like scrappy and desperate about the image that was kind of cool, you know? I just really love it. And there's like this kind of dreariness, like this brownness to the movie, you know, like everything's kind of like drab, like winter New York kind of feel. I feel like all those old movies feel very brown and gray, you know? And Sean really wanted to lean into like gray for the film as much as we could. Anora has a lot of blue and cyan, and we wanted red to be a powerful color, like her scarf and the bed sheets. We wanted to lean into like that muddy, like mushy, miserable New York. Although we didn't really get any of that snow, we had to create it. That was on Fremont Street in Vegas, and the entire street, which is like 3 or 4 blocks, the entire ceiling of the street, there's no sky, it's LED, like an LED screen ceiling. So like it's playing fireworks on an LED wall, essentially, that's built into the ceiling. So I mean we were probably shooting at like a 4.5 or something. There's so much light there, you know. And yeah, we shot that on the wide lens, and I just went out and shot handheld and just riffed with them and circled them around them. It was very like Malick almost, you know, like if it was wide lens, just riffing with them and floating, and they're interacting with real people on the streets, you know. That's what that was. That was very Sean Baker, you know, to like include real people that you just find on the streets. So yeah, one of my favorite shots is there's like this profile shot on her. I think there was a teaser trailer that Neon made for it where it was just that shot. Because it's so beautiful. It's just profile. She's just looking like kind of out the window, and it's just, I think it was shot on the 100. The bouquet is just huge, and it's just dancing and moving around and bleeding into the image, and then it was, you know, gorgeous. I loved it. Yeah, we shot in the winter time. I think it was like mostly in February in Brighton Beach. We shot in Coney Island, a little bit like Sheepshead Bay area, all like very, very like Little Russia side of Brooklyn, you know, like that was the film. We shot in a real Armenian church. I think that was maybe even our first day of shooting or our second day of shooting, which was amazing. And then we shot in HQ, which is like the real club in Manhattan. I mean, it was very much like you see, like lap dance downstairs and private dances upstairs. And I think that was important to sort of like understand the geography of like how that space works. And I think in all of Sean's films, like he's very heavy on like true geography and sense of place. You know, I think that's very important to us, like holding wide shots as long as we can, showing like every bit of the location. I feel like when you watch the film, you understand the geography of that house, right? You understand the geography of the club, that there's the downstairs area, and then there's the stairs, and then there's like that little lobby area, and then there's the little hallway where that leads to the private dances. The massive house, yeah, that was in not Sheepshead Bay, but one neighborhood over from Sheepshead. So it's like Coney Island, Brighton Beach, Sheepshead Bay, and then that neighborhood. It's all like very Russian, Ukrainian, Uzbek. It would realistically be where where like a very rich family, a Russian, actually, and here's the thing, like that house was built by a Russian oligarch, and the Russian oligarch lived in that house up until COVID, and then he sold it to another family that we rented it from, and I believe they might have also been Russian. They were super accommodating. I mean, like, we lived in that house. I remember we watched the Super Bowl in that house. Like, I think we wrapped and then we all just like hung out and drank beer on the couch and watched the Super Bowl. Like, we literally lived there. Like, downstairs was like production headquarters. The middle ground was like hot set. Upstairs was like the main bedroom, and then like actor holding and makeup and their world. And then the top floor was like also a hot set where we had a couple of, you know, sets like where they're doing drugs. There's like that blue room when they're all like doing ketamine. There's the massage room that's at the house, and then the roof where they're shooting fireworks. That was all up there. And then of course the helicopter shot, which I feel like nobody asks me about the helicopter shot, but that was fucking insane.
Tell us about the helicopter.
We had, so it was a big argument because we had, you know, there's drones. Like, clearly you could have done that with a drone. You could have started like 6 feet away and like pulled all the way out and had all the control in the world, and it would have been perfectly rock solid. But no, Sean didn't want to do that. He wanted to shoot it on 35. He wanted to shoot it from a helicopter. And he really insisted on wanting to shoot it handheld from a helicopter. I couldn't do it because I was in Brighton Beach. I was at the house, so we were shooting. So we had to basically hire someone else to go do that shot, who I had never really met before. He had the Lomo Zoom handheld, and he's doing a zoom out. And then as he zooms out, the helicopter starts pulling back and drifting up. And it's handheld. It's like this, you know, we had to stabilize it a bit in post, but our Alex Coco's in the airplane, in the helicopter, like screaming. We're on walkies. We can literally see them outside the window. We're all staring at them. It's so loud and so chaotic, and it was absolutely insanity. At the end of it, we didn't think we had the shot. Sean was pissed. Everyone was pissed. We're all just like, man, that was a big fucking waste of time. And then we got the footage back the next day. We watched it. We're like, you know what? Let's send it to our colorist. Let's see if he can like do like a little stabilization on it, grade it, and like get it looking nice. And we did it. And then finally, we're like, you know what? This is great. It should be handheld. It should feel like kind of rocky, and you can see Manhattan in the back as it pulls out. So it like really helps just helps you like kind of understand where the house is, you know, in relationship to the city, and you know, it's got the sunset, the city in the back. I mean, it's just amazing. The movie's not super handheld. Like, there is some handheld, but it's often quite classic and locked down. But I do think that it goes with that sort of thing I was saying about like having a human touch to it and having imperfections and having, you know, just feeling like it is like this almost Hollywood moment, but it's a handheld shot in the helicopter in 2023 or whatever. It's like literally looks like a 70s movie or like a indie 70s movie. Like, we kept on referencing Dirty Harry, you know, like the end of Dirty Harry. It's like handheld helicopter. You look at like behind the scenes back in the days, they literally would have guys strapped in and hanging off the sides of helicopters. It's essentially what we did. I mean, I have a photo of the guy, and he's just like got his legs sitting out on the rails. He's handheld. He's strapped in, and it's just like you could just see the fear in his eyes, you know. But it was cool. We did it. I mean, it was pretty amazing. I can't believe he didn't like drop the camera out the thing. You know, he even like had to reload a mag while he was, and he was the only one in there. So like,
Wow.
he had to literally reload a mag with the doors open. Coco, our producer, helping him. Like, the mag could have just like slid right out the helicopter. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, everyone was strapped in and stuff, but man, it's crazy. It's one of those like fairy tale moments in the film, but it's like a little off, you know. It's really fucking handheld shot out of a helicopter. It's like, I don't know, but to me that's the movie. You know what I mean? That's exactly the movie. So I'm really proud of that. And that was very Sean's idea, you know. So I gotta give it to him. I was more on the like, let's just do it on a drone. Like that way we can just control it from here. We can grade it to look, but then that would have been the only digital shot in the whole movie. And I think we really wanted to be able to say we shot this entire movie on film. So, you know, I tend to gravitate towards naturalism, but like sort of a heightened naturalism or like a subjective kind of naturalism. I love Robert Altman's description of his camera work. He calls it subliminal reality. And I just really like that because there's like, sure, it's realism, but you're also like, you're trying to like subliminally put a feeling in there or or heighten it in a way or lean it towards one thing or another. And we're always kind of trying to do that and trying to emphasize certain things or a certain feeling. You know, like there's the sunset shot where they wake up and it's sunset after the party. That was like a really nice moment of like that sort of, because it's beautiful. Like the lighting it's like one of the few times where the lighting is like true, like really beautiful. Because I feel like we also didn't want to like beauty light everything. And like, I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay with the film not being traditionally beautiful in a lot of ways, you know? Like I look at it and I can really get really judgy and be like, oh man, I should have like lit that shot a little bit more, or because it's easy in retrospect to do that. But I don't know. I like I said, I like giving the actors space. I like working quickly. I like there being a little bit of imperfection in there. And I like it just feeling real. Like the second the lighting starts to get like over the top or unrealistic, like it's not functional anymore. It's more like showy. Then I try to stay away from that. There were little moments here and there where we had like little hits of something, a little spiciness here and there, but ultimately the lighting is very functional, I think, in Anora. And well, here's the thing too. Like I remember early on, we had discussions like, okay, what is Anora? Like we were talking, okay, maybe we shoot it on like reversal film and we use like only tungsten light and we like go like very old school with it, you know, and that means like lighting everything with like tungsten Fresnels and bouncing and diffusing around the barn doors and like gelling every single light and having like it actually be like a lot of light required for that. And then I started thinking about it more and more. I was like, that's just gonna get so in the way of the film. Like every day is just gonna be about like the lighting, and the lighting is gonna become such a thing. We're gonna get sick of that, and we're gonna get really angry at that. So then it just became, okay, no, this is more, let's just use HMI's LEDs and we'll work quick and we'll be able to make changes on the fly, color temperature, dim, this and that. There's still one scene I watch every single time, and of course they put it in like every trailer and everything, and I hate it so much. And it's just the scene where like, you know, they're in the locker room at the strip club and the guy comes in and he's like, hey, we got this Russian kid, Annie. And then she's like giving him lip about like, you know, oh, your cousin, the DJ's blah, 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 blah. And like, that little scene, like I just wish that I had like done a little bit more. I think I was trying to be too true to the actual lighting in that room. The actual lighting in that room was like quite ugly. The room was very ugly too. The lockers are an ugly color. Like it's just like there's a lot of things going on in that scene that were just not very pleasing cinematically or, you know, cinematography wise. And I just kind of went with it because I felt like it was going to be more honest to just play it how it is and be more minimal with the lighting and whatnot. But I really wish I had done a little bit more because it just felt so muddy. I think that's probably the main one. I mean, honestly, I really do like the film. I have very little regrets about it. I mean, I'm just proud that the film is a really good film. I mean, I'm proud that the cinematography is like in service to the story and not over the top and not showy, but it's very me as well. Like I feel like this more than almost any other film I've done, like I feel like it has my signature on it. It feels very me. And I think it's hard to like get through a film and be happy with your work entirely and own it, you know? There's always like something, but even the mistakes, like I'm kind of proud of some of the mistakes too. Maybe not the one I just mentioned, but it just feels so honest to me. It feels honest to Sean. It feels in service of the story. I'm really proud that like this movie is going to put Mikey Madison on the map. Just to be, you know, in a way partly responsible for that is pretty awesome. I saw her last night. It was just amazing just seeing her. She's going to be a movie star now, you know? So I mean, that's really awesome, you know? I feel really good about that. I'm also proud that like the movie stays true to who like Sean and I are, to like our indie roots. It feels like we're taking a step forward, but it also feels like we're being true to ourselves and not going Hollywood, and not going like, maybe not going Hollywood is the right way to put it, but we're not selling out. We're being very true to ourselves, and I'm really proud of that. It feels very honest.